And now, from the Department of Psychology, Veronica Yen, from struggling to learn to learning to struggle.
Growing up, I was one of those kids that did well in school, and I was proud of it. I sat in the front of the class, I got A's on every exam, and I was known as the smart kid. I was learning faster than all my friends, and because of this fact, I was sure I'd created a method that was the key to making learning easy and effective. Inspired by that idea, I applied and was accepted to UCLA's psychology program to uncover the answer to what makes learning easy. But once I got to grad school, I began to realize that I'd been asking the wrong question. In lab meeting after lab meeting, I listened to researchers discuss, get this, making learning more difficult. As it turns out, many of the study strategies that learners use, that I myself had been using, only made learning feel easy. But in reality, this created only an illusion of learning. You see, when learners are required to be more active, to struggle and engage more deeply with the information, they ultimately learn better. So to illustrate this point, let me share with you an experiment that came out of the lab that I'm a part of, the Bjork Human Learning and Forgetting Lab, right here at UCLA. So in this study, 2 groups of participants were told that they had to learn to recognize the painting styles of 12 different artists by studying their paintings. So the first group concentrated on one artist at a time. So for example, they would see 6 paintings by Lewis in a row, followed by 6 paintings by Slorf, and so on until they had gone through all 12 artists. So here's how this part of the experiment looked. Here's a painting by Lewis, and every 3 seconds, a new painting would appear. And by the 3rd painting or the 4th painting, I'm starting to get a feeling for what Lewis's style looks like. He's got those thick brush strokes, those vivid color choices. All right, I think I got Lewis. How about you? All right, now the second group, they studied the same paintings by the same 12 artists, but this time in a mixed up order. So here's how it felt for the second group. Here's a picture by Slorf, okay? Wexler, all right. Oh, Pisani, that looks a little different, got it. Stratulet, oh, blurry-ish, I guess. Hawkins, oh gosh, just 5 artists in, and I'm already overwhelmed. Oh wait, Slorf again, I know that name. But wait a minute, what did that first Slorf painting look like again? We then checked to see whether the learners had truly learned to recognize an artist's work. We showed them new paintings that they had never seen before by these artists and asked them which painting belonged with which artist. Now, which group do you think did better? The first one, right? I mean, just going through that demo, seeing the same artist 6 times in a row felt so much more organized, so much easier. Mixing them up just felt confusing. And in fact, this is what the experimenters who first conducted this study believed. And even the learners who went through this study said that studying artists one at a time was better for their learning. However, contrary to what I thought, to what the experimenters thought, and even to what the learners themselves thought, the second group, who studied the artists all mixed up, learned their styles a lot better. There are many other examples in psychology where people's intuitions about learning are wrong. For instance, students are often given the advice that they should pick one place to study and do all of their studying there. But research has in fact shown the opposite to be true. If learners really want to learn the information, they're much better off studying in many different places. Or another example is that students often believe that if they read a chapter over and over again, that's learning. But again, it's been found to be much more effective if they read the chapter once, close the book, and then try to recall the important concepts from memory. In other words, test themselves. The set of strategies that make learning feel less easy, but are in fact more effective because they engage the learners more deeply, are referred to as desirable difficulties. And because the majority of learning takes place outside of the classroom, back in the dorm room or in the library, learning is, for the most part, self-regulated. So it is important that we teach students not just what to learn, but also how to learn. But with so many believing that learning should be easy, how can we convince them of the effectiveness of desirable difficulties? So I took this painting study, and I tried to show learners that they had in fact learned better when studying the artists all mixed up by drawing their attention to the link between their test performance and their initial study method. This didn't work. People still thought that studying artists one at a time was better for their own learning. So I then tried sharing statistics, telling them, in fact, 90% of people learn better when they study the artists all mixed up, even though it feels easier to study the artists one at a time. Still didn't work. They still didn't believe me. So I went further. I even explained to them why. Because when you mix the artists up, this highlights the differences between them, which is what is really critical for this task. Guess what? They still didn't believe me. With all the scientific research, and even having gone through learning in this way for themselves, how could they not see the effectiveness of desirable difficulties? But then I thought about everything that I've learned here in grad school, and then about how I study. And then I realized, I'm not sure I believe it either. What was it that I said again at the beginning? That I was the smart kid, and that in my formative years, learning came easy to me. But now that I think about it, it's because I avoided the things that were hard. For example, regional competitions that would pit me against other smart people, if there was even a chance that I would fail in front of others, I wouldn't do it. And it's because of what I believed that struggle, or worse, failure meant. That I was stupid, that I was a fraud only masquerading as smart. It turns out that I was suffering from what Carol Dweck, a psychologist at Stanford, refers to as a fixed mindset, a belief that intelligence is innate and cannot be changed. People with fixed mindsets cope poorly with criticism and failure because they're highly concerned with maintaining a positive self-image. They avoid challenges. Why do I need to prove that I'm smart? Or worse, what if it proves that I'm not? And as a result, they never really reach their full potential. On the other hand, people with growth mindsets who believe that intelligence can be increased with effort, they learn from criticism and embrace challenges, and ultimately achieve more because they don't shy away from struggle. Reading about the fixed mindset, I really felt like Carol Dweck was peering into my brain. When we talk about learning, there really are two very different things that we mean. As the girl sat in the front of the class getting straight A's, learning to me meant that I had to maintain that outward appearance of success, to keep getting those A's. And I did just enough so I could perform well on exams. The study methods I used were those that made me feel good and even made me look good. But I mean, I can't tell you about any of the materials that I crammed for in college. Now, real learning that lasts, on the other hand, real understanding goes deeper and requires methods that feel and are completely different from learning just for the sake of getting high marks on an exam. What I'm learning is that struggle and failure are not signs that I'm not good enough. And I'm learning that it's important to let that fear go. And I'm beginning to learn that struggle and failure are really central to the process of true learning. And that in order for me to continue to grow, I've got to place my trust in desirable difficulties.